Today, we're going to unpack some of the most famous, and let's be honest, absolutely hilarious stories from Telugu folklore. The tales of Paramananda and his disciples. But we're not just here for the ancient jokes. No, we are going to put these stories under a modern psychological microscope to see what they reveal about the hidden bugs in our own thinking.
Because that's really what this is all about, right? What can these super simple, ancient fables actually teach us about how our own minds work, or, fail to work right now, today? I think you're going to be surprised by just how much these supposedly foolish disciples have in common with us.
All right, let's kick things off with their most famous blunder. It all starts right after they've managed to get past a pretty big obstacle, crossing a river. So they make it to the other side, and they decide to do what any responsible group would do: make sure everyone's there.
Seems simple enough, doesn't it? Just a basic head count. So, the first disciple steps up, points his finger, and starts counting his friends, one by one.
He counts 11, and just like that, panic. One of them must have drowned in the river. So another disciple tries, and he gets the same result. They all take turns, and every single time, the count comes up one short. They sit down and start crying for their lost friend, totally convinced he's gone forever. And the crazy part? Every single one of them forgot to count himself.
So a stranger just happens to be walking by, sees this bizarre scene, and figures it out instantly. He has them all line up, and as he gives each one a good solid whack on the back, he counts out loud, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 12. The disciples are overjoyed. They're ecstatic. They think this guy has literally performed a miracle and resurrected their friend from the dead.
It's hilarious for sure, but it really makes you wonder, how on earth could they be so blind to something so incredibly obvious? Well, the answer lies in this fascinating little glitch in how we see ourselves. Psychologists have a term for this: egocentric blindness. It's basically a failure in metacognition, which is just a fancy way of saying thinking about your own thinking. See, each disciple was the subject doing the counting, right? And they completely failed to see themselves as an object in the group they were counting. They literally couldn't see themselves as part of the picture.
And this one mistake, it wasn't just one mistake. It set off this whole chain reaction of other psychological traps. As soon as that first disciple said someone was missing, everyone else started looking for evidence to confirm it. That's confirmation bias. They became so convinced they were wrong that they just gave up, which is a classic case of learned helplessness. They had to rely on a total stranger, an authority figure, to come and show them the obvious truth.
Okay, so if you thought forgetting to count yourself was a little out there, wait till you hear this next one. This is what happens when our expectations don't just blind us to reality, they actually create a whole new one.
So, the story goes, the disciples find this huge pumpkin, something they've apparently never seen before. A villager who's feeling a bit mischievous sees his chance for a prank and tells them it's a mare's egg, and he says if they take really good care of it, a beautiful horse will hatch out. The disciples, they buy it, hook, line, and sinker. So they're carrying this precious egg ever so carefully, and, of course, one of them trips. The pumpkin falls and smashes into a million pieces. At that exact moment, a hare that was hiding in a bush gets spooked by the noise and just bolts. Now, you and I see a broken pumpkin and a scared rabbit. What do they see? They see their egg hatching and their brand new baby horse running away.
So, why? Why on earth did they see a horse? It is a perfect, and I mean perfect, example of what the psychologist Jean Piaget called a schema assimilation error. Okay, think of a schema as a mental filing cabinet in your brain. The disciples didn't have a file for pumpkin, so they took this new thing and just jammed it into a file they desperately wanted it to fit into, the horse egg file.
So what was really going on inside their heads? Well, it was like this perfect storm of mental mistakes. They projected their hope for a horse onto a completely random event. Their brains, which were already primed to see a baby horse, basically saw what they wanted to see. It's kind of like seeing faces in the clouds. And it all started with just pure gullibility, accepting that ridiculous premise from the villager without a single critical thought.
Now, this kind of messed up thinking, it gets even more dangerous when the entire group gets stuck in this feedback loop of bad logic. And that can lead to some truly, truly terrible decisions, as our next two stories are going to show.
First up, the tangled legs. I mean, this one is just wild. They wake up one morning, they've been huddling together for warmth, and their legs are all crisscrossed. Instead of just, moving,
They completely panic. They can't figure out which leg belongs to who, and they're terrified that if they pull the wrong one, they might rip off someone else's leg. So they just lie there, totally paralyzed by the problem.
And then there's the story of the iron brand. This one gets a little dark. A disciple sees a farmer branding a bull, and when he asks why, he's told it's a procedure to keep the animal healthy. His immediate thought? Our guru has been sick. This must be the cure. So he rushes back and actually brands his sleeping teacher with a hot iron.
You can see right here where the logic just completely falls off a cliff. The disciple makes a simple comparison. A bull is a living being, and a guru is a living being. Okay, so far so good. But then he makes this catastrophic leap. He just assumes that a treatment for one must be a treatment for the other, completely ignoring context, biology, and, basic common sense.
So what we're seeing here are a couple of really critical failures in thinking. In that first story, it's paralysis by analysis. They overthought a simple problem so much it became a catastrophe. In the second, it's a classic false analogy. But honestly, the most chilling part is the complete lack of what's called theory of mind. The disciple was so focused on his solution that he was literally unable to imagine his guru's perspective, that being burned with a hot iron would be unbelievably painful.
So, when you take all these stories together, the counting, the pumpkin, the branding, it's not just a collection of funny mistakes. It's actually a perfect portrait of one really powerful psychological trap.
And that trap is called groupthink. This is what happens when the social pressure to just agree and get along inside a group becomes so strong that it completely overrides critical thinking, common sense, and sometimes even your own moral judgment. The disciples are basically the poster children for this.
You can boil this mindset down to 3 core traits. First, there's a diffusion of responsibility. No single disciple feels like they need to think for themselves because, hey, someone else must know what's going on. Second, you've got high conformity. It's just more comfortable to agree with the group than it is to be the one person who's right. And third, concrete thinking. They take absolutely everything at face value, with no ability to grasp nuance or context or metaphor.
And this is the most important part of this whole thing. We laugh at these stories because they seem so ridiculous, right? But they've survived for hundreds of years, not just because they're funny, but because they are a timeless mirror. They reflect the universal and often invisible bugs in our own mental software. We are all, every one of us, susceptible to these exact same errors.
Think about it. The disciples consistently needed an outsider, a passerby, their guru, to basically whack them with a stick and show them a simple truth they just couldn't see. So the question I want to leave you with is this. In your team, your family, your community, when you're all counting 11, who is the stranger that can see 12?